No, do I have an internet connection here? Hey, Stella. It's good. It's all good. Hey, awesome. Right. You all set, everybody? All right. All right. It is 7:01 p.m. on Monday, the 7th of August, 2023, calling the meeting of the Transportation Circulation Commission to order. I see that Bart is not here tonight, and also Lynn is on leave of absence. So I'll call out your name and please respond with here. We have Stella.
Here. Greg.
Here. Vianney.
Present.
And I'm Carl. And so we're all in order. So just as a disclosure, won't go into it, but this is a hybrid meeting. If you're calling in, that's great, but we can't stop the meeting if there's technical problems. The main focus is the people here in the room. Okay. Any changes? Anything someone would like to change on the agenda? Okay.
Motion to adopt.
All right.
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. So that measure passes. All right. We're at item 5. For people listening online, this is the opportunity, or people in the audience, the opportunity to talk about something that's not on the agenda. So is there anybody online tonight?
Yes.
Okay. Any hands raised?
No.
All right. All right, going once, twice. All right, let's move on to, there's no old business listed. Is there anything we need to discuss from old business? Nope. Okay, great. Because normally we take the first meeting of the month to discuss cars and updates. And since that's on the agenda, we'll do that later. All right, so new business. Sean Co.
So I'll introduce Sean.
Yes.
That's okay.
Yes.
Tonight we are really, really lucky and privileged to have Sean Coe here from Streetlight Data.
Yeah.
And over the past year or so, there have been a lot of questions and inquiries about the capabilities of Streetlight. Lafayette does have a license for this service. We are that license is supplemented by CCTA, so we're grateful to them. But I've asked Sean to come in and give us just an introduction about Streetlight and what it can offer Lafayette.
Terrific.
Great, thank you. Yeah, as Patrick mentioned, I'm happy to be here. I'm Sean Coe. I just live one county over in Alameda. I'm a transportation planner by training. Actually used to work with Stella at NTC for many years. So my background is in transportation. I'm familiar with the issues in this area. And I'm just here to really kind of give you an overview of Streetlight Data and our platform. As Patrick mentioned, it's the subscription through the platform is through CCTA. CCTA have been a client of ours for the past 3 years. They just renewed their subscription with us, and that enables really anyone anyone meaning cities as well as consultants who are working with cities in Contra Costa County to get a license and run really any analysis that they want to using our platform. Next, please. Great. So Streetlight Data we are a company that takes massive amounts of transportation data and makes them into actionable insights that you use to make decisions. So any of those decisions can be infrastructure decisions, planning. A lot of our customers use the data to sort of inform anything from a sort of short range corridor plan to a long-term transportation plan. Next. So it's really about what decisions can be made with the data. We have what we call we take repositories of data, we ingest that into our software platform, which is it's a web-based platform similar to and tools that planners use, like GIS software would be a closest example. You kind of run your metrics on a picture area of interest, whether it be a street, or corridor, or county. You run that analysis and it returns that data. And then from there, it enables you to make informed decisions, collecting data that is either difficult, expensive, or potentially unsafe, like putting down hose counters in the middle of the road to collect that data. So next. So we pioneered using location-based service data, which had come from smartphone apps. So those were apps where it asks, can you use your location to track this? An example would be like a weather app. We took that from companies that would aggregate and anonymize that data. And we used location-based services, among many others, throughout the years to really make those pings, which are coming off of those apps, into actionable trips that can be used to represent trips, modes, origins, destinations, all within a particular community. So the data landscape has evolved, it's constantly changing. So we've used location-based apps, we've used cell phone data, and we're currently using connected vehicle data as well. So we have a whole, it has to meet very strict measures of privacy. We have a privacy by design team that ensures that we can't identify individuals. So it's all aggregated metrics in a particular area. Next. And as I mentioned, you can really pull any metrics on any road, on any geographic level. So this is really showing AADT, average annual daily traffic, that could be run for all of Contra Costa County, just for Mount Diablo Boulevard to a particular intersection. AADT data, as all of our metrics, is validated against ground truth data, which is the federal government's counters. They publish vehicle counters. We validate all of our metrics against that, and our aim is to be as good or better than any ground truth data that's available. Next. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of uses that our customers use the data for. So anything from corridor studies, safety, bike ped safety, vehicle safety, speeding, intersection studies, congestion management, equity in terms of where people are going from, what neighborhoods and what kind of trips, and then traffic calming and management. Traffic calming would be cut through analysis to look at if there's cut through traffic coming through a particular neighborhood, and if so, where is that coming from, and what can be done to sort of mitigate that. Next. And as I mentioned, we've had a number of projects here in Contra Costa County. I won't go through this list specifically, but this has been run by city staff as well as consultants who are working for those cities on a variety of analysis. And it's just an example, everything from transit-oriented development to corridor studies to traffic calming studies. And so all those have helped to inform projects. And then the consultants make recommendations to city staff, and then the city staff take those recommendations and create plans. So that was not something that Streetlight we do. We just create the data, make it available. We don't inform or make recommendations to staff. We're not consultants. We just provide the data, and then it's up to the consultants to make the recommendations. Next. And this is just an analysis that CCTA asked us to run for all of Contra Costa County. These are just entry gates through both on the freeway and both major roads in Contra Costa County to compare pre-COVID to post-COVID, so 2019 to 2021. of the trips by residents. So for those trips coming into the county, what are the percentages shown in yellow by residents and what are non-residents of the county? So essentially who's causing all this traffic? Is it people heading through? Turns out in some cases, it's a lot of local traffic, as you can see in yellow, particular for some of the big roads here in Contra Costa County, like Nassau Valley Road, San Pablo Dam, San Pablo Dam is, as you probably know, if you've driven that. So, and then the bottom part is showing the top home zip codes where these trips are coming from in 2019 and 2021, and just to compare, has the work from home has a shift of not going to large employment centers like San Francisco really shifted. So this was just a part of analysis that was requested by Contra Costa County CCPA, which we did and presented to them to help form some decisions or even questions from members of the public as to who's causing all this traffic. And that's really it. I think that there's a lot of interest in our data platform, and I'd be happy to answer any questions from the group.
That's great. Let's start with some commissioner questions. Any of my fellow commissioners have questions off the bat?
I do, actually.
Okay.
Very nice presentation, but do we really need lighting here in Lafayette?
You mean street lighting?
Data.
Data?
Well, I mean, it's any data that's collected is really, what I guess the question would be, what data would you need to do particular projects? So,
Well, what is the reason for having lights here in Lafayette? For crime?
no, so yeah, common misconception, we don't deal with street lights, that's just the name of the company.
No, I understand
Yeah,
that.
so
Well, maybe I could,
Wait, I'm not.
oh no, on that point. Maybe Patrick can fill in on how we're planning to integrate this data with the local data that we're already collecting, for the LRSP and other things. That's some of that was mentioned in the presentation later today, the next presentation.
Right, so as an example, we could use streetlight data to inform where families are coming to and from when they go to Stanley Middle School, so that when we're talking about an alternate pickup and drop-off zone, we know how many people are coming, for example, from Burton Valley up to the school and then U-turning and going back. That's one example, but it could help to inform the slow down campaign, the Slow Down Lafayette campaign, or the traffic calming program, or any of the capital projects on the major corridors.
Okay.
Go on, yes.
Well, I have a vested interest because I enjoy astronomy. And today there is so much light pollution, and we all, amateur astronomers, are asking our cities, various cities all over the world, to tune down lighting because it's just become really ridiculously light at night. And it also is a problem for animals, for birds. And for us astronomers, it's becoming harder and harder to see this night sky. And I can give you an example. 32 years ago, I moved here, and I still could see, most often I could still see the Milky Way. Today, no way.
So,
So it would be.
So I think what Sean was saying was that the name Streetlight is only referring to their company name. They're not adding actually streetlights.
Oh,
They're so, and in fact, the idea is shining, by gathering data, they can shine the solution and provide data, to illustrate what's going on. All right. That make sense?
yes.
Okay. All right.
I'm so blinded by wanting to have less light.
Yes, I understand.
And on top of that, I'm visually impaired.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's a big subject for us and as amateur astronomers.
Any other questions, Gianni, about the presentation?
No, that was
Art or Stella? No questions, great. I'm sorry. Oh, wait. Oh, hi there.
I did have a question, you kind of raised it. Did we incorporate or utilize the tool at all in the LRSP development or not access it at that?
No, the data that was accessed for the LRSP were largely collisions, and that was done through Switters and Tim, so not through Streetlight.
Okay. And then Sean, just in terms of, I assume it's real time or as up to date as possible, and there is, you can sort of slice it anyway.
Yeah, so we have about a month lag in terms of the data availability. It takes us a while to process it, but yeah, it's pretty close to what, you know, in planning, at least for real time. And we do have some metrics that are primarily used for construction that we can use real time in terms of almost 24 hours. But that's typically for sort of construction management where you know, there'd be I was talking to someone about Gilman and Highway 80, like if they change something for construction, they want to see that have an effect. We do have other metrics for that.
And then, Patrick, I guess just, have you all had a chance to sort of play around with it, use it? Are we going to be able to incorporate it?
I have used it and it is something we're going to incorporate more. So for example, the Stanley Middle School project that is just kicking off, we are planning to use that to help inform that project and our projects moving forward.
That was also something I was going to ask. Do you have access to a portal or how do you view?
It's an online, it's not a portal, it's an online, what would you even call that,
Yeah,
web
it's
access.
Yeah, it's a web
Web-based
application.
application.
So you have credentials, you log on, and then you run analysis. And we also have a API that query and get data from as well.
Okay, because you mentioned that CCTA requested your company to do this analysis that's on the screen.
Yeah, so,
That was
yeah,
only
so,
one use case.
so we have our self-serve data platform, which is available on demand. And then I actually work in our professional services team. So, John Hong had asked me to provide certain metrics, but was like, you know, I'm kind of busy. I don't have time to log into the platform and sort of learn what analysis I need to run. Can you just put this together? And so they have these service credits, which are like on-call consulting dollars essentially. And he said, this is what I'm looking for. So I scoped that and then delivered, you know, one of, I don't know how many, 15 slides or so for that particular analysis.
Okay,
And that can be done as well for any city and Contra Costa County. So, yeah, the county has small cities with limited staff, and we often do that where we say, okay, I just need to know what the speeds are on these major roadways. And that's something that my team will just deliver on slides, you know, along with the actual data itself. But then Patrick wouldn't have to, you know, spend his time doing that analysis and then sort of just take that and then look at it and identify the high speed areas, for example.
I see. And so the resolution goes down to the local roads.
Yeah.
And even some of our really small ones, as long as there's cars traveling through.
Yes, so
Sufficient quantity.
yeah, exactly. So we can do each direction of the roadway, but it's only the center line of the road. So Stella probably knows what I'm talking about by center line, but so we can't tell which lane as an example. But, you know, what's like what, you know, if it's a 4-lane road, you can't tell which lane. And so if you're looking at an intersection, whereas at the north side is the south side, you know, you can't really say like, you know, if a pedestrian is crossing and movements are crossing through there. But yeah, really any road that's on our maps.
So you could capture the speeds for a freeway off ramp,
Yeah.
for example.
Yeah.
Okay. Or a free right turn lane.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, that's cool. And then I think I have one other question. Let's see. So 2 counters, you mentioned that this could be used in lieu of those. So is that something that you consider for the traffic calming program or? starting to explore how this data. could
Yeah, I would
be
actually like to validate the two counter data that I have with streetlight data
Yeah.
to see how aligned they are, hopefully.
used. Yeah, that actually would be really, really
Yeah.
great, yeah,
Mhm.
the ground truthing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we know other source for streetlight to quality check local data at such a little level, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we definitely, we need, ground truth counters to validate the data against, but we could say run a map in, of all of the streets in the city and say, okay, these look kind of high, then, Patrick and the team would have to go out and, validate that with two counters or radar or something else. It's like, yeah, this does look like, but it could sort of narrow that list down, particularly like for traffic calming requests, like I've seen that in one city, they say, this is a really high speed street, and staff will go, yeah, it looks okay, but, or yes, does look like a high speed street, and we'll send out the traffic engineer to go investigate further.
Mhm. That's great. Thank you.
Okay, I've got some questions then. And I'm gonna try and get to how granular your data is in some of this. So for example, we have a road through a neighborhood called Acalanes Avenue. We've had a lot of discussion about cut through traffic. And so is it possible then to say, not only, you can you at a neighborhood level say the traffic there is from the neighborhood versus outside the neighborhood? I assume you can do that.
Yes.
Okay. Can you then, from the people that are outside the neighborhood, can you determine what other locations, let's say within Lafayette or outside of Lafayette, they're coming from?
Yeah, so we can basically say for Acalanes, that's a destination. And then, where are all the trips coming from? So we could say, down to the neighborhood block group, these trips are coming from these neighborhoods. And we could give you the trip length in terms of miles,
Mhm.
and then trip duration in minutes. And say, yeah, these trips there's a lot of trips that are just cutting through, they're just coming from this adjacent street, when they're coming from sort of outside of the neighborhood.
And for origins outside the neighborhood, are you able to identify the average speed of those of a group of cars, for example, or traffic?
Yes, we could look at, if there's one, if you want to look at one neighborhood where there's a lot of trips coming from, you could specifically look at those trips to say, these, what's from one location to another, what's the average trip speed? Or the other one, we have another analysis called top routes. What are the mean routes that you're going from one location to another?
Does your data differentiate between cars and bicycles? In other words, people are biking, with cell phones. I assume that, can you differentiate those traffics?
We can, yeah. So we have, in addition to cars, we have trucks, which is heavy duty and medium duty, which
Yeah.
are pretty big vehicles.
Mhm.
The medium is according to the federal highway definition, weight. I can't remember what the weight is off the top of my head. But then we have bus, rail, pedestrian, and bike trips.
Okay.
So yes.
And does UPS or FedEx block your data? Does anybody block your data?
Well, we don't, no one blocks our data specifically, but we get our data from companies that provide, like for trucks, as an example, that provide that to, as a service. And I know that UPS has their own system, and they don't share that data with the suppliers.
Okay. Your presentation mentioned Walnut Creek was using it for EV planning. Can you just flesh that out a little, what that means?
Yeah, so one thing that we could do, and that many of our customers have done with EV planning is, there's been new federal funding under the NEV program to install chargers. So many public agencies will want to know where to put those chargers. So right now, there's relatively not that much of electric vehicles. California is the highest of any state, but so what we do is we look at how long vehicles have sort of stop in a particular area.
Mhm.
So say if you're wanting to put a higher speed level 2 charger, you need to have people stopping there for, like 30 minutes as an example. So we look at different areas and we say, okay, these are, if some of these vehicles converted to electric vehicles, this would be okay, or this wouldn't because people aren't stopping there very long. So an example would be maybe not the parking lot for the library, but along the street, are people stopping here for 30 minutes or 20 minutes? We could tell that, and then it's up to the city to say, okay, great, we can put a number of electric vehicle chargers here. With an average, charging time for 30 minutes or so.
Yeah. That's great. Okay. Any other questions? All right, let's open up the opportunity for people in the audience here in this room. If anybody wants to speak, you can just raise your hand or ask questions. Okay, I don't see anybody itching to talk or ask questions. What about online? Does anybody have a hand raised?
Yes. We do have one person. How much time?
3 minutes. Let's start with that.
All right, sounds good. So first off, we have Susan Candell.
Okay.
She is unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
If we can, go ahead.
Great. Hey, thank you. I am Susan Campbell. I'm on Lafayette City Council and the liaison to the TransCirc. And I'm really, really sorry I couldn't be there tonight. I had a work thing come up. But I have questions. What are the time? Like the only thing I saw was the annual rates. Like how granular does that get down to? And you said we have a certain number of credits for getting your expertise and your analysis. I want to take that a step further. It's like, do you have training? And if you're going to provide training, who in Lafayette is going to be the people who are going to get trained on this? And so we don't have to like use up all our credits on stuff that's not that sophisticated. And for those trainings, about how long do these take? Like, what's the entry level? How difficult is the platform to understand and use? And so how much training would we need? And, obviously staff will get it, but do you sometimes even offer it to people like on our TransCirc commission or people like me on city council is interested? Do you offer trainings for that as well? And I think that's all my questions. Thank you. And thank you so much for being here. I really appreciated you coming.
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, in terms of time, we can go down to 15-minute intervals. So if you wanted to know, from 8 to 8:15, how many vehicles are going along a particular corridor, we can do 15 minutes. I mentioned that annualized metrics, that 15 minutes is the smallest bin that we go to, and that's also common practice when you're doing just traditional traffic counts as well. We typically count 15 minutes, so it's in line with that. If you've ever seen people stand on the corner of the clipboard, I've done that. Patrick probably has too. And you're counting that you do it in 15 minutes. So, and then to answer your question about training, so we have a dedicated training team, and I can't remember. I think Contra Costa has that training package. The training team is really great. They hold trainings both virtual and in person. I can't remember which ones we've done here. And then the training team will come train, people will sign up, and then you take that class. There is sort of a prerequisite, which is through a self-serve part of our platform, which is level 101 and then 201. And then most people do the 101. I'd say, transportation planner, that, someone of Patrick's experience with, 101 is like plenty. He'll pick it up easily and learn everything. And then there's 201. And then on top of that, we have a certification, which is like a professional certification for planners and engineers in the field, to take it one step further. But just to learn the basics, it's pretty, I would say for transportation professionals, going through the 101 is, people pick it up pretty quickly. And then, your question about have people out, like, non-staff council members, and I know that we've had an advocacy group in like North Carolina, trained, I don't know who those people were, they also could have been transportation professionals, but it's kind of up to CCTA. They have as part of their subscription, they have a certain number of licenses, and I don't see a reason to limit it. It's up to them, you know, and the staff. Certainly, if council members would like to get a license and go through the training and dedicate your time for that. I don't see any restriction on that. We certainly don't have one. It's up to CCTA, like I said, on how to use those licenses. And then in terms of those sort of, you know, on-call bucket of it's an on-call budget for any, you know, like a task order-based budget for like staff are just using with consultants. That's not counted in the training. The training is part of the contract cost of accounting subscription. So.
Okay. Thank you for that. Is there any other hands raised?
I know.
All right. Let's go back to questions in the room.
Shall I?
If you want to, sure. The camera's gonna follow you.
And it was going over to Owl, Teresa Geringer, Shangri-La in Lafayette, and also in the Lafayette City Council. And I was gonna hold the questions for after, but since Councilmember Kendall asked her questions. So the city, my understanding is that the city pays $10,000 a year, roughly.
Exactly.
So on those projects, Sean, where the other city projects, are those part of the what they're accessing through the subscription through CCTA? Or are those separate contract subscriptions that those cities have used?
Yeah, so the way that the sort of tagging on to the license that the city does, it's unlimited. So in terms of use, so you can run as many analysis as you want, and then I can't actually remember, I don't know if you know off the top of your head how many seats that gets you. And I think it's a lot, but if you're a consultant working for the city, that doesn't, you know, you don't sort of deduct from that 10,000. It's like it's like subscription for Netflix or something. You pay a fixed amount and then you get as many, you know, analysis or TV shows in that example, I guess, as you want. And then, you know, you can give, Netflix doesn't allow this, but you get a certain number, you know, that goes along with that. And yeah, it does count, but then what, you know, a city could do is say, okay, we've got, you know, Fair and Fair is working on something. They just need it for this one analysis, and then you reallocate that license for another use. And that's a common way to sort of not make sure that that's just not sitting around unused for a year or something like that.
Right, okay, and then maybe Mike or Patrick, what projects have we used the data? What projects have we done?
I've used the data to kind of supplement some of the other work that I've been doing, but it hasn't been used as a kind of an integral part of any
of our studies with any of the consultants that have been doing them right now.
Right.
So we can plan to do that.
Mhm.
And I have some other ones that'll be more kind of in the weeds after, but
If it benefit the commissioners, you're welcome to ask more.
I think that, so, well, actually, one question that isn't kind of in the weeds for staff, but is how with the smart signal program that we're going to do, and I actually had reached out to CCTA as well as that's being planned. Will that be something that could be used to tie into, or is there an overlap at all? Or, and I don't want to put you on the spot, Mike, but
I don't know that we know that yet.
okay,
I mean, I would say that you're getting data from a point source. Smart signals will also be a point source with a lot of capabilities and video and sensors and
In real time.
and in real time. I would say it's likely that at some point this will all tie together or one can supplement another.
Okay,
But we do not know the details of the Smart Signals project at this point.
okay. Thank you. And I don't want to go over my 3 minutes, so I'll hold
All
my
right.
questions.
Okay.
Even though, thank you for not turning the time on. And thank you again, Sean, for coming in.
Okay. Any other questions from commissioners? All right. Well, thank you so much for coming in and sharing that with us. And I know that it's exciting because I know that a lot of the programs that we're doing involve gathering data and anything to help out Patrick is excellent. So thank you for coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have any questions, you could just forward them to Patrick. And
Yeah.
Patrick, please forward to me, and
Yeah.
we've got a whole team that's happy to answer any questions if you think of us.
Great. Thank you. Okay. All right. So let's move on to the next item then.
Yeah, it's exciting that, we are moving towards a much more data-driven
Yeah.
approach, and so we've got, the help of Streetlight and now Officer Andy Conley.
Yeah.
With the Lafayette Police Department, who's here to talk about the new Slow Down Lafayette campaign and his approach to data collection.
Excellent.
Andy.
Yeah, either way,
All right.
I'm happy to.
Or do you want to
Stand advance too, if you'd like. Great, so thank you. Well, thank you. So, hopefully, as everybody's seen, last week we launched publicly the Slow Down Lafayette campaign. So spend 15 minutes or so here and give you some details of what it really means and what it's all about. We can go actually to the next slide. Yeah, one more. Okay. So this all comes out of the Vision Zero work that the city has started a year or two ago. This is the police piece to come join into that aspect. And our focus is like Vision Zero is we're focusing very much on reducing serious injuries and fatal accidents, which fortunately there's not a lot, but they are there, and we obviously want to get rid of hopefully all of them, but as many as are possible. So that's the genesis of what Slow Down Lafayette is all about. Speed ends up being piece this like the core of everything associated with accidents. The faster you go, the more serious the accidents, the quicker your reaction time has to be. Everything is tied into it. So that's the essence that we can address. Vision Zero, if you look at the circle over here, Vision Zero thinks of 5 main groups associated with transportation. And so one is the safe vehicles. So this is a combination of vehicle manufacturing as well as maintenance. Second is safe speeds, which is an area that we fall into. Third is safe roads, which Patrick and traffic engineering is, so that's their primary focus there. Fourth is post-crash care. So that tends to be fire department, ambulance, first responders from a medical perspective. And the last is the safe road users themselves. And it's not just cars, but it's bicyclists, it's pedestrians, it's people handicapped with wheelchairs, it's everybody that uses our road systems. And one of the things we're focusing on in the police department is obviously safe speeds, but we want to do it in a way that's not just enforcement. It's education, helping the users actually be safer on the road too. So there's a lot of nuances and details about how roads work and what causes accidents that I'm not sure everybody is aware of. So one of the things we're going to try to do is work on that as well too. So really there's a couple different aspects I'll talk about here. One is we're taking a data-driven approach based on our police data, Patrick's local road safety plan information that he's pulled together, and any other sources we can get our hands on to identify where are the hotspots in town that we should really be focused. No surprises, there's some pretty obvious ones that we've got corners that we have accidents on a regular basis. We've got a lot of congestion downtown. But looking at the data that we've looked at has helped identify some additional places we can go. So that'll help us ID where to go. Second thing we're working on is real-time feedback. So the traffic engineers have put out a lot of these speed signs, particularly Pleasant Hill Road, you see a lot of them. We have a couple signs that we'll also be putting out that look the same. It's real-time feedback of a person's speed, but we also capture some data at the same time, which I'll talk about in a minute. So that's basically trying to help the safe road users get real-time knowledge that, whoops, maybe I'm going too fast and I should slow down. Third piece we're also going to do is education. So through social media, articles, again, bring out information so people, drivers and everybody else learn more about how to be a safer driver. And then the last piece is, yes, we are the police and we do enforcement. We're hoping that education and speed display solves all the problems. Probably won't. So we will also do targeted enforcement as well too as needed. And that'll be a combination of looking at how many speeders there are in particular areas, what times of day that we run into that as well. All right, so just a quick recap on Vision Zero. I think probably everybody in this room has probably heard and been involved in it. Basically, I'll say it's a new approach. It's been around for a while, 10 years or so at least, of how to look at how to reduce traffic issues and accidents. The old way was, let's get rid of collisions, big, small, doesn't matter what it is. Everybody focus on their own on how to go after that and reduce it. It's expensive, they're going to happen anyways, so we'll see what we can do. And that was kind of historically how people try to focus on this and just do a little bit. The new way is having all of these 5 major areas work together, share data back and forth, and see what we can do to help each other. And not just focus on every accident, because there's so many different places and reasons for a low velocity accident. But focus on the ones that are absolutely critical. So we've got a much smaller set of things to look at, and lets us be able to be a lot more targeted in what we want to do. And again, the systems approach wording really just means we're all working together, we're sharing data, we're trying to figure out how everybody can do everything together. So past history, the first place I heard about it looks like Sweden started and did some of this. They had between 30 or 40 and 50% reduction in serious accidents, so huge numbers. That's been seen similar kind of numbers in other areas in Europe. It's now come to the US recently. Philadelphia has also published some numbers. New York City's got it going as well. San Francisco, I know, is running it. I don't know how long it's been there, but it is starting to show up, particularly major cities. And so it's our turn now to come on board and see whether we can make a difference with it. So from the data side, a couple aspects of this. The first thing we did before we got all our equipment that we're putting out in the field is we said, all right, what data do we have? We have a list of calls, we have a list of police reports, we have a list of the CHP state forms we fill out for more serious accidents, which ends up being Swiffer's data that goes into the rest of the world and feeds publicly information. So we have a bunch of different sources that we did. I ended up focusing down on our reports data. So reports that we wrote, which tend to be more significant than just 2 cars exchanging information on a minor accident. And it does cover, it should cover all of Twitter as well too, but it's something that is more real time that we can see, in an afternoon or a day or two after something has happened too. And our categories are slightly different than what they have been in the traffic engineering world, but basically the same thing. We have the property damage accident, we have injury accident, which we don't have big or little in our reports, but we have that, and we have fatal accidents. And there's 2 levels in hit and runs, the same thing. There's injury and non-injury as well. So those are the areas. We took a couple of years with the data to start for us to start targeting areas. So that's part of what we started with. We've also got the equipment that we've gotten a quarter to a half of the equipment in so far. So the things that we ordered first was there's some low profile radar boxes we have. People don't know they're there. It's like a little black Pelican box chained to a post kind of thing. People don't quite know what it is. None of this stuff, by the way, captures license plates or personal information. Basically, when a car goes by, it takes a timestamp, it takes a speed. In one of the cases, at least, we know which lane and 2 lanes they're in as well too. So we started with those and just starting to get a read of, okay, what's traffic look like? Where do we find these speeders on the main roads? Second one that's come in is we now have 2 of these portable display signs. Again, they look like the traffic engineering ones, but they also record similar kind of information. It looks like what they do is they give us bins of 15-minute increment data for us. So it's, 27 cars came through with an average speed of this, high speed of that. So it's more buckets than every single one. But similar results that we can use. So those are up now. One of them is on westbound Mount Diablo Boulevard down by the gazebo, so just east of the police department. Excuse me, a couple blocks just to see what's going on. The other one, since school is coming up, I just put out on St. Mary's Road, westbound up here or northbound, depending on where you look at it, but it's right at the beginning of the Stanley Middle School open spot. And so that's right where it steps from 35 down to 25 miles per hour. And I would have it's mounted on the same sign as the new speed limit sign. So that's been up. We can run it without the display running, the capturing data. We can run it with the display running. And so we've been running it for almost a week now without the display running, and the next day or two I'll turn it on. So we are, and then we can look at data then as well too. So our hope is with all of these, let's see, the last pieces were we've ordered trailers that are more like what you've seen when you have a sign that's displaying slow down or traffic or whatever. But they also record the same kind of data, just a timestamp of the bill that comes by, how fast it was going. And then it will also display speed too. So that first one just got here a couple days or a week ago, and we've got a second one on it. So we're going to use all these pieces of equipment to gather the data. That's all we will look. The data is a little different, so we're going to figure out how to merge it together so we can have a common report. And that will help tell us, okay, so we know this is a big accident place. We're worried about where's the fastest traffic coming in. Are there a lot of speeders or are there not? Well, the data I've gotten showed some places I would have expected speeders and we don't particularly have them. So that's step one that the police have gathered. Step two is we're working a lot with Patrick. So we've looked at his long range safety plan. We're providing our information. He's got speed surveys that have been done, partly just past history in the neighborhoods and also partly stuff that we have to use in the law enforcement world for actually defending tickets as well. And so that's another source of data that we can use for all of this. And the goal of all of this is we'll do a bunch of iterations and get more and more targeted on where to go, but use that to figure out again where we should be focusing our efforts. So, okay. All right, so what's it look like? So here's a map. It's not as beautiful as what's in the safety plan, but each one of the dots that are on the map here actually either is an intersection or a block, like 800 to 899 Moraga Road, for example, would only just show up as one. And the injuries are in yellow, fatalities are in red. The data we had available right now is 4 years, 2018, 19, 21, and 22. The 2020 data was in a completely different format, and that's taking too much work to clean it up so far, but we will get there. So it looks a little bit different, but if you take a step back, it's the same kind of areas that you see in the long range safety plan. It's Pleasant Hill Road, basically from up near Spring Hill School, Rayleigh's Valley area. The bulk of it down to past Occolantes High School and down to Pleasant Hill Road with one or two, and then obviously the circle as well is places that we've had accidents. It's downtown everywhere. Deer Hill Road from Happy Valley all the way out to Brown, or actually even Elizabeth is another area. That's one of the places that the speeds seem to be a little bit lower. But the accidents seem to be at all of the intersections. So our focus is more on what are the speeds coming into these intersections and how does that vary and can we affect that at all? I have some expectations. I don't know, we'll see, but I would imagine that people coming from Occolantes High School are moving at a good rate when they come into First Street. I don't know if that's true yet or not, but that's the kind of stuff that we're going to be looking at. Okay. Moraga Road from Mount Diablo Boulevard down to St. Mary's area. When you get up in the turns going down to the town of Moraga, Toppelmeyer is right up in the turn. We go there a couple times a year, close to the road for a few hours because a power pole or something got taken out. So that's another area too. These are also only intersections or blocks that have two or more severe accidents or fatal accidents on them. There's a long tail of single accidents spread all over everywhere too. And I did not look at those for now. These were the primary areas we're looking at. So, okay, so that's the rough area where we're looking. Next. And so listed in words, pretty much I described it. So Mount Diablo from El Nido Ranch all the way down to Pleasant Hill Road. Again, Pleasant Hill and El Nido Ranch are intersections that are big deals. And then we see the bulk of the rest of the accidents and issues tend to be right in the downtown area, the more populated area. First Street, Oak Hill Road, Moraga Road and Mount Diablo, those areas in particular. Moraga Road, again, I mentioned, there's a lot of traffic again that's generally moving faster coming up from Moraga. And it's just very congested and that causes a problem. Moraga Boulevard and Moraga Road, we've had issues before. Pleasant Hill Road, I mentioned, Deer Hill Road and intersections. So pretty much what I went to. First Street and Oak Hill Road themselves, the piece that stretches between Deer Hill and down to Mount Diablo. Are the areas that we're watching, mostly because of their feeder sections into those other intersections that have more accidents. And a bunch of others too. Raleigh Valley Road has had a few accidents in various places, so we will have to look at that. A couple have been on Glenside further down in the Burton Valley. School areas are definitely very important for us, particularly during when school starts. We do a lot of police presence in that area as well. And that's also why I got the reader outside of on St. Mary's Road coming into Stanford. So we looked at slightly different data. It overlaps a lot from the local road safety plan. We looked at our criteria being 2 severe accidents, slightly different than what was used in the local road safety plan, but it heavily overlaps. And it basically tells a very similar story, which is what we would have expected. And it is pretty much in line with if you've lived here for a while, you probably have some good expectations on where the problems are in a lot of places. So I'm a 30+ year resident of Lafayette as well. So, okay. All right, so speed reduction. So again, speed is the one that drives everything else that causes all the problems. Measured, I talked a lot about the tools we've got out there. The real thing that we want to do is quietly put something out there, measure what's going on, put up a sign, either displaying or not displaying, see whether anything changed, have the sign displaying, see whether anything changed, do enforcement, see how it changed, and then also have a look after the fact is, did it last? Or was it only when the sign was displaying? And so it's going to take a while to find out really how that works, because I'm running things a week at a time, because every day is slightly different in Lafayette, and trying to compare between those 2 areas. So that's the overall approach for this, and it'll be months, and as we get data pulled together, then we will provide that data as well. And again, the measure of success is, did we reduce the number of people exceeding the speed limit, particularly people that are more than 5 or 10 miles an hour over, because that's where they're just really love to do it in terms of reduction in accidents, but the volume of accidents fortunately is not high enough to statistically get a good answer in a short amount of time. So we're doing that up the speed. So, okay, thanks. Yes, we are the police. Yes, we're going to do enforcement. I know some people were worried that maybe we weren't, but we're trying with the education and working with folks as well. So what we have done from the enforcement perspective is we've purchased 2 other LiDAR units. So this is the laser light radar equivalent. You can be very targeted on which car you're looking at and get speed. So we've now got over or more we can use at any given time. We have gone between 1 and 2 motor officers in the last couple of years. As people have moved and rotated in and out for various reasons. We have an officer that's training up now. I think we talked before the meeting that it's months worth of training just from the riding perspective, as well as courses on what you're allowed to do with tickets and how you got to show you can actually visually measure speed as well. And then collision accidents evaluation, there's multiple classes on that. So it takes some time. But the current person that's going to be that motor officer is out doing enforcement in the patrol car already. So we are doing enforcement. And we've got extra equipment to measure things. So as time allows, our lead cars are also, officers are also out watching for speeders as well too. Like we do every year, we'll have a lot of presence around the schools, particularly around downtown for that first couple of weeks after school starts, just to make sure everybody understands, take it slow. We do give out tickets in the mornings when we do that, particularly our motor officers. It's usually not speeding because it's congested, but it is people that are turning in places they're not supposed to be because they're in a hurry and they're just trying to get there. So that will be part of this. Okay. All right, last piece is again, this basically what we're gonna do in terms of education. So the way I see this is, well, first of all, we identified, looking at some of the SWITR's data for similar areas to Lafayette. Statistically, we didn't quite have enough of the SWITR's data. We looked at Lafayette, Moraga, and I think I looked at Alamo, Danville, so I just get a bulk of stuff that was publicly available. And then said, all right, where are the people, what are the age groups of the people that are getting hurt, right, or getting involved in accidents? And there's not too many surprises. Under 24 is a big one. The new driver, they're overly confident, they haven't had a scare yet. So our new drivers in town, the high school here is one area we'll be focused on. A little bit of a bump maybe I have kids in school age parents don't quite know exactly what it is, but certainly focusing parents on, because you can watch them in the morning and, you know, they got their coffee cup and their phone call and their kids screaming all at once. It's a busy life. And so whatever we can do to help educate people on the risks as well is what we're looking at. And then the next bump is as people get older. The volume isn't as high, but older drivers tend to have a little issues the older they get. So our primary focus is really more in the new drivers, school age parents area is what we'll be focusing on. In terms of education, there's a wide variety of things we can do. Mostly will be through social media, maybe some articles, maybe some publications. But a bunch of different concepts. Right now, we're really looking at back to school. It's coming back. So back to school is yes, just be aware, but also what else can we tell people about? What can you do differently that you maybe hadn't thought about before? So one of the big things about Vision Zero is create more space and create more time around yourself. So in the motorcycle world, there's a space cushion. You basically choose the path between your two, your couple of riskiest things, be furthest away from the highest worst thing. I don't think that's trained very much in the just normal driver world, but that makes a lot of sense when you're going down the road trying to drop somebody off at Stanley and you've got kids running off the road right next to you. Give them a little extra space. So that's the kind of thing I can see. The other thing is, people remember back to their physics days, when the speed doubles, the energy quadruples. It's a fourfold increase, right? It's a square of the speed. So that means when you go from 25 to 50, you now have 4 times the amount of energy that's got to be expended in an accident. So you greatly increase it. The human body gets hurt a lot quicker than that too. So for example, if you go from 25 to 35, you've doubled the amount of energy pretty close. That's in that car, the kinetic energy that can hurt somebody. And you've way more than doubled the severity likelihood of a faster person. So 3, 4, 5 at least times more than if you were 25. Well, that's not a big change, and that's something people drive 35 all the time when they're in the 25 zone. Right? And I don't think people know that. So that's the kind of stuff I'm looking for that we can put out and make people think, oh, I drive 35, I have a much higher risk of hurting somebody than I would if I was driving 25. So, and it's not just drivers, pedestrians, bicyclists, everybody that are out there. We've certainly seen our share of folks that didn't quite follow the rules and got hurt there as well too. And last but not least, on the right, we've got a picture of our Slow Down Lafayette sign, which I know has been done. We use other things. Suzanne Yarla, our public relations person, who's got a box full of them. And we're going to do, I guess, like she's done in the past on other things. We basically put them out on loan for 30 or 45 days, and people can pick them up, put them in their front lawn. That's great. We'll probably put some on public property as well to get them out there, but not let them just wither and be there forever. So we have to have them come back when they're done. So I think that's it on Slow Down Lafayette. So put the stake in the ground. Now we've got to go see how it works. So go from there. Questions, I guess.
Yeah, so let's start with the commissioners. Questions on either the staff report, which it was this presentation really helped fill in, or the presentation itself. Anybody want to start?
I'll just say thank you. This is really fantastic.
Great.
Yeah, really. I mean, I'm so surprised and happy,
Good.
happily surprised.
Yeah.
You've really been putting a lot of work, I can see, into developing out this program. It's very comprehensive. From the technical all the way through the education and enforcement. And I know I have a bunch of questions about some of your reports, but since you didn't present them
Yeah.
today, maybe I'll just send them to you offline.
Sure, be happy to answer them. And I'll just say about the report. So first of all, we've also put up a webpage at the beginning of last week. And the intent is we're gonna add reports of the data that we found, in an aggregated, simpler to understand way at least, right? And also if we publish articles or other things, we'll put those on there. So we've got an archive of everything. The reports we put together was the first shot, and we expect many iterations. We've already seen a bunch of things internally that we'd love to do to make it easier to read and all the rest. So I will take any and all suggestions of how to make them better. I'll just say a couple of feedback I heard anonymously of things other people had asked were school year versus non-school year makes a huge difference in traffic around here. Absolutely. It doesn't say that on the reports. We do keep the dates to keeping track of that. That's one of the things that I'm putting on the report. The reports basically identify either an intersection or usually like the police reports that go out, the 800 block of Moraga Road, the 3600 block of Mount Diablo. Well, that can be long, right? It's all the way to 3699. And so people sound like want to hear a little bit more. So we'll try to be a little more targeted on that. Lewis Cross Street. And again, I'm totally open to what we can do to make it more valuable in this. So.
I have a couple other
Yes,
questions.
let me just quickly interject that I had that point when I was looking, by the way, I did want to say congratulations on the website and also on the articles. There was, a good article that was, I think probably came through the city email, but it was the article in the News 24-680 that was really good.
Good.
But I don't know, this is the quick thing. On those reports that are online, it might be useful to, if you're gonna include, a little map showing the location, because visually, when you open it up, you'd also have to open up, a browser and go to Google Maps and find out what is that 900 block or whatever. And that might just be an easy way to help
Yes,
people understand that. And at the same time, also, we'll talk about later the
Good.
whether school's in or out of session. So back to you, sorry.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so it would be really helpful to know a little bit more, I guess, granularity where the speed was taken, because like you said, a block could be really long. Like, I was looking at your Pleasant Hill Road data
Mhm.
and 1200. I know Akalani's is 1200 Pleasant Hill Road, but I just don't know where that ends, if it goes up to Release Valley Road or even beyond. So I guess, that's leads to the question I have, which is just part of your decision-making process on where to place the, are you primarily focusing on within the segment as opposed to intersections, or?
So, it's really the list of places, and what I've got behind that is, accidents at intersections and blocks, and looking at the parts that go into those areas. So just before you're entering any of the intersections, what's kind of speed would people be in? Also thinking a lot about the schools, particularly as we get into there, because that's kind of the highest risk place we don't want to have speeders in. So for example, and so places we worry about. So for example, Pleasant Hill Road, there are a couple of samples. The very first one we did was right after there was an accident coming into the circle going southbound. And so I put the reader there just above where it started funneling down before the sign said slow down to see what was going on. Right? The other one that's been on there, which I'm back out there now, the signs are up, is just north of Rockland High School in the south. So to see how that was, and so I took it, I don't know, it was a couple months ago probably, and now it's out and finish up this week, now that all the signs are there before school starts.
Oh, good, so
So we'll
before
see.
and after.
Right,
Okay.
exactly. I think that's gonna be the first one that really shows before and after.
Okay. What about northbound Pleasant Hill Road? Do you have plans for that?
Yes, it's on there too. And it's basically been when it's time to move something, we say, all right, what's going on? right? What's coming up in terms of campaigns that we're gonna wanna look at. What just happened in town, we had a couple minor crashes, but crashes up Under Hill Road, so I'm pulling up Under Hill Road too. Aqualani's Road out on the east and or west end of town, got a couple complaints on that, so once we get out of the school startup time, I'll probably put something out there, even though it's not particularly one of the targeted ones, it is. We're talking about pass-through traffic that came through town. And that's probably the one that's got, then we're all getting into traffic.
Mhm.
So I've got to reevaluate based on what's happened recently, and march down really trying to do the big areas first. And then go through them. So again, I'm open to input from people.
So for the 900 block Pleasant Hill Road, you mentioned you did that after there was an accident.
Yes.
At that conversion or the conversion of 2 lanes to 1 lane,
Mhm.
the merge. So these data are post lane reduction that you had on the report.
So there's been a lot of changes down there that I have not kept track of each one. I've got the dates and maybe we can figure out where we were. There were signs. And it was a lane reduction. I think it went down to 1 lane already, and that was probably a block above that. So it was really just kind of right where people should start slowing down before they get into the hole.
Okay, because the data was amazing. I mean, 50% going at or below the speed limit,
Right,
which I did not expect.
right.
But the 1200 block of Pleasant Hill Road,
Yes,
entirely different
yeah,
story in the southbound direction.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm really curious about northbound, so I'll be happy to see that
Yeah.
at some point.
yeah. So the highest speeds in general so far look like they're very early in the morning or late at night. So it's not a large volume, but there's nobody on the roads. Everybody's out at 5:30 in the morning. Because they can just blow on through there. The highest volumes are more like commute times, 8, 9, 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. But the speeds are a lot lower.
Right, that was something that I thought would be helpful to see, the distribution of the speed groupings by that time of day.
Yeah.
Starts to get to be a pretty big table, but
Yeah.
it would be interesting to see. All right, that's really helpful, thank you.
Great. So again, I'll reiterate, thank you. I think the program is great. I was super excited to read about it and then see it sent up all around town. And totally look forward to sort of the data being posted, iterations, et cetera. Just a couple of questions. And I think you said this, but I just want to confirm that I heard it correctly. You're not only using the data from the portable signs that you have and the trailers, et cetera. You're also incorporating the data from the new signs, the new speed signs that are put up along Pleasant Hill Road.
So
Not the engineering signs, no,
No.
those are just flashing speed, slow down.
That's not
They're
collecting any data.
right, so there's 2 sets. Ours actually gather the data. Theirs just uses radar to display a speed. That's it.
Okay.
So we're not using that, but he does put these twin tube traffic counters that do those speeds. And you see the
Yeah, yeah.
speed drives across the road, and he's gathered a lot of data. He's got a lot more data that's just about to get here, and we will be using that. as well.
Okay. Okay, well, I'm sure there will be plenty of data. But just be nice
Yes.
to figure it out. And then just in terms of the portable signs you have and the equipment you have coming, it looks like it's probably super easy to move. I assume you're some sort of regular cadence, moving around to the different sites you talked about. And then is that going to be posted or on the website, or is it?
So my plan is to go do a study in an area without publicizing it, see what happens, and then provide the results, because I don't want to influence the results. So that's really the way I've gone about it. So I will publish the results once they come up. Is the summary data, which is what you started seeing here already. We can get that out reasonably quickly. The comparison of the before, during, and after is going to take longer. Yeah, each one of those will take a month probably to get through.
And then on the presentation, it said that one of the measure of success is going to be reduction in the number of speeders. When you say that, are we talking about both number as well as average speeds or,
Yeah, so lots of discussion around what's the right metric, right? Average speed is not, maybe it's okay, but the thing that we're really worried about is the people that are going fastest. So for now, we've said the number of speeders, and it might be number of speeders more than 5 miles an hour over the speed limit, right? But we're getting the data, so we can have it in 5 mile an hour buckets over there. So one of the things as we get more data, we can look at is, okay, how did we change people that were 15 and above miles an hour over the speed limit? So that's the highest risk from an individual perspective. Where did we affect it most? Maybe it's which one of those buckets had the highest volume of people. And I'm not quite sure what the right measure is. So we started from this point to just say, hey, let's go after folks that we know are speeding, and can we reduce those folks?
Yeah. Okay, I got a couple of questions.
Sure.
That's very helpful, your presentation, but those black boxes, they only register the speeds or the number of cars or both?
Both. So when a car goes by, one car, it clocks the time, the speed, and on one of these, it says whether it's in the closest or the second closest lane. And that's it. And then from there, you just got a literally, I've got recordings with 100,000 cars in it. Then it has recording tools on top of it that can aggregate it for us into half hour or 1 hour
Oh, I
buckets.
see. And does it, all the data comes directly into your office? I mean, live?
No, it doesn't come live. There's a way to go connect with the boxes in the field.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And how many of those boxes do you have?
So we have one of the low profile boxes. We have the second one on order. We have 2 of the speed signs that are there. We have just got 1 of 2 trailers that we plan to use.
Oh, I was talking about those black boxes. I see it that are attached to the post.
Right, so there's only
You have
one.
one on Second Street, yeah. And just down the street here. I was curious whether it was being used or is that bogus?
Second Street, I did not put one there, so that,
I think he's talking about a different black box.
yeah, it could
Also
be,
put
but
the
that's good.
Mhm.
So that way people don't know what it is.
I don't know, I'm walking.
Yeah,
And
but
then
then, yeah, but there are, it's basically a nondescript box that gets
Right.
attached to a post or a tree or something like that, so.
And then my other question is, are you gonna have cameras put on top of the light at Moraga Road and Mount Diablo? Because a lot of people are stuck in the middle of the intersection.
Yes, so that's not in my slow down Lafayette knowledge. I know we have a person in particular in the police department who has helped put up cameras all over. I believe the police side can actually look at that intersection. We've got most of the big intersections downtown covered.
Oh,
So when there's an
yeah.
accident, we can actually see what happened.
Oh, I see. Well, then do you give them tickets or is that just purely for?
We don't give tickets based on the cameras.
No.
If we sit and witness, if our officers sit and witness something happen, then they will give that a ticket.
Yeah, because I see a lot of cars, you know, what are they called? Blocks, you know,
Gridlock.
cars that block the,
Yes.
and
Yes,
so I thought maybe you were trying to minimize.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So all of the intersections on Diablo have camera?
I won't say all, but we have a good number of them, because I don't know exactly which ones, but you know, the main ones, First and Diablo, Moraga and Diablo for sure. They have them out there, and it's very helpful in terms of solving accidents that took place.
Okay, so how long do you keep how long is the memory when does it take?
I don't know, but it's long enough so we can get it when something
Okay.
happens.
But there isn't somebody who is right there on looking at a monitor to see if they're.
We do have live feeds from a bunch of cameras, not all of them, but from a bunch of them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Because it is for pedestrian, it's kind of scary.
Yes, yeah, I appreciate that walking to lunch, so I understand.
Thank you.
Stella?
Can I just ask a follow-up question? So
Sure.
Moraga Road and Mount Diablo Road, the issue that I see is that pretty much every cycle, someone runs the red light, turning southbound onto Moraga Road. And it's almost a joke when I'm parked there by the old Wells Fargo waiting to
Yeah.
head east. There's always someone.
Mhm.
you have the cameras. It's acknowledged that this is a
They're not
chronic,
like cameras.
no, they're not, but that's a chronic problem, so I'm just wondering if there's an engineering intervention here. I mean, I know we can't control what people do, but every cycle, almost every cycle, how can we bring that down? Because, well, I mean, I don't know, I'm wondering.
I mean, it's not that we have the data. It's
We have
so the enforcement and signage and just everybody behaving, right? So.
Is there an interval there?
We do.
We can make it longer, but then there's the yeah.
2 seconds, isn't it?
No, it's more than that. It's
Oh,
like 5 or 7.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
The challenge is there's just a lot of traffic going through with the space we have.
Yeah.
Some of these intersections, so.
Yeah,
That's part of the solve.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's just a concern for everyone, but there's an awful lot of middle schoolers
Yes.
crawling
Oh,
all
yeah.
around that intersection. Going from the middle school to the mall.
Yeah.
To get their candy and their Jamba Juice, et cetera. And so it's just a really vulnerable location
Mhm.
that I just wish we could kind of move the needle a little bit towards safety. But I'm encouraged by your education. Sorry, I don't mean to
No, this is
to
good.
go off a
Good.
tangent, but just related. I would encourage you to connect with the school district because it might even be something like the parent faculty clubs would have presentation at one of their meetings. And maybe even the school district has a parent education kind of program that they do, which is a lot of like education related topics, but perhaps there is an angle for this. For one of those, it's called DCAT, I think. Councilmember Geringer probably knows from school district days.
On the,
Is it
which, I mean, on the
part-
education
DPAC?
program
Yeah, is it
Yeah.
called like District Parent Education Committee?
committee or something,
Yeah.
but yeah, we can definitely connect. But Nuru also has good connections with the superintendent.
Mhm.
And then also the newsletters doing education, like submitting, they have a newsletter every week, so potentially submitting little tidbits or something.
May I?
Yeah,
Please.
please go ahead.
I just have one question. If there is an accident at one of those intersections with a camera, can you then use the camera feed to make sure who is at fault?
Yes. It's recorded, so we actually take that to court. We can do it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And we can figure out exactly what happened. We can watch it.
Yeah.
Before we go to public comment, I wanted to come back to, and this is, I intended to ask this before it was raised, the permanent speed radar signs that basically, for example, on Release Valley Road, the former Chief Christensen with the council's authority installed radar signs. And I had gone back after that at some point and asked Chief Albert if we could, get that data. And, we didn't get a reply because it may not be possible. But I'm wondering on certain stretches around schools and other places where we're installing radar machines that are fixed. I'd like to understand why, if those machines are someday replaced, it seems to me we should have a policy of being able to get data without manual downloads. And in other words, it seems like on certain high-speed corridors like Pleasant Hill Road and then in Moraga, Street and so forth, where the chronic, problems. Now, if you had the data, it still may not fit into your program of what you're trying to accomplish with the different locations. But I'm just trying to understand why we don't make it a long-term goal to collect data from fixed radar signs.
So I think that's a good question, good discussion for us to all have. The things I think about, the reason why we've got portable signs is things don't change that much, right? I mean, and daily, Wednesday is different because school's late, the weekends are different than weekdays, holidays are different, that kind of stuff. But I think probably statistically, traffic tends to be about the same for a while, as long as there are other external influences. So we can probably buy signs that record all that and look at that, but the question is, how much more valuable is having that all the time versus doing a tactical approach to go in and check it every 3 months, 6 months,
I
2 years, whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I don't either, so. All right, let's open up for comments. Either any people in the room have questions or comments at this point? No? What about online? Anybody have their hand raised?
No.
No? Okay. Then some of the public comment, I did want to ask for staff, if you care to comment, there was some public comments by way of email. Both from, Buckley Hughes, who's a former commissioner, and I think some of his concerns about school times has already been discussed. I didn't know if you had anything you wanted to add to tonight's discussion regarding Buckley's emails, or just handle it offline.
No, I thought that Officer Conley had addressed public comments about collecting data
Mhm.
during the school year and also being clearer about the location, right? Because I think that was the
Yeah.
other issue.
No, I
is-
agree. I just didn't know if you wanted to fill in on it. Yes.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
Yeah.
There was also an email from, it's listed as Bodhidharma. The person is a crosswalk guard and mentioned, the 2 areas on St. Mary's Road. And I didn't know it's kind of overlapping with this, but is there any follow-up that needs to be done regarding that letter?
I have followed up with him offline about the engineering improvements that were part of the comment.
Okay,
So,
okay.
and then it sounds as if data is being collected
Okay.
exactly there. So perfect.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. All right, then, any other questions or comments?
I
So,
have one. I hope that next week we'll send out a Nixle or other communications to the community about school starting on the 15th, I think, for both the Lions District and the Lafayette School District. And then you mentioned having officers do enforcement, targeted enforcement in that first week downtown, but I would ask that you also, if you can, send them over to Spring Hill and
Yes.
Aquilanes.
Yeah, so we put basically all officers, all parking officers out, and we try to blanket every school. So there's Happy Valley Elementary, we usually have a parking officer up there at that time. Aquilanes, we usually have one marked vehicle and a parking officer up there. So we do try to cover everything.
Okay.
We've got just barely more people than maybe schools in the morning, assuming a lot of parking officers are on, but we do that.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
it's specifically enforcement at the Pleasant Hill Road location.
On the Nixle comments, so I'm starting drafting some of the social media stuff that will go out this week.
Excellent,
That's starting to get the word out on back to school.
thank you.
well, in closing this item out, I'd want to thank you again for your work and encourage all the public that are listening online or listen to the recording later to please take a look at the city website, which you can find, just by searching on it or clicking, look for slow down and you'll find it. And it's very useful. So
Lafayette.org/slowdown.
that's right. That's right. So thank you very much.
All right.
All right. All right, let's move to. Everybody's good right now. We haven't hit 2 hours. Everybody's good. Keep going. All right. This would be the next item then is item 8A. This is the update on the TARS and that'd be,
Yeah.
you're up.
Yeah. So you've got my staff report in front of you. To summarize, I just thought I would go through each of the 6 TARs, and if we want to bring something up on Google Maps, we can. But again, TARS, you all know, is a transportation action request form that residents can fill out to request specific, identify specific issues to city staff, make recommendations about what it is specifically that they're asking for. And then if that treatment or measure impacts residents along the street, requirement that signatures from neighbors be attached. So the staff report that I provided provides a list of the 6 TARs that were received in first and second quarters of this year, 2023. There were other TARs that were submitted. If you remember, the traffic calming program had been put on hold until very recently. So several of those TARs that came in were specific to address vehicular speeding on my street. And so they've been moved over to the traffic calming program, and those applicants have been informed about the reopening of the program. So the first TAR, these are just put in order that they were received by me, is the intersection of Brook at Mountain View. Does everyone know where that is? Okay, so this constituent lives near that intersection, and the issue was a lack of stop sign compliance by drivers. This is a cut through route for drivers trying to get generally from the west side of Mount Diablo to Moraga Road. And so vehicles turn right by the Trader Joe's on Mountain View and then turn left on Brook and can hit a signal there at Moraga. But the issue that was alleged was lack of stop sign compliance, and the request was for essentially a street closure in the intersection to restrict through traffic. So the action was denied. There was a lot of communication between myself and the constituent of the applicant. I actually proactively went out and checked speeding along Brook Street to see if that was an issue. And generally, no. There is traffic coming on that block of Brook Street, and 85th percentile speeds were actually lower than the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. So speeding wasn't an issue. I did acknowledge that general lack of a complete walkway network in that area probably does contribute to feeling uncomfortable if you are out walking there. But we are not able to close the street. I have informed the police department about the complaint, and the constituents seem satisfied, just in terms that I was acknowledging the issue and responding.
Let me ask a process question for the commissioners. Do you commissioners want to go through all of these in detail? Or do you have ones that you have queries about that you wanted to ask specifically? How would you like to approach it? Just continue as we're doing it or change the format?
Or there are only 6, is there?
Yeah, right. No, I'm just asking if people have hot burning issues they want to get to really. No? Okay, then let's.
Yeah, I appreciate the question,
So
because I wasn't quite sure how you wanted this addressed.
No, because I went through everything and I, read them and looked at the maps, and I know most of the areas too.
Okay.
And I'm good with you continuing if that's what the other, commissioners want. So
Okay,
let's keep going then.
okay.
But I appreciate you doing the check on the speed there, because I drive that area a lot too. And I could see how the resident was concerned about it.
The second location is Pleasant Hill Road at Amino Drive, so that's on the lower half of Pleasant Hill Road south of the freeway. And the issue was that primarily the applicant has a new young driver and claims that it is challenging to make a left turn out of Amino to go northbound on Pleasant Hill Road, given the volume and speeds of traffic along Pleasant Hill Road. And the request was to install a traffic signal at that intersection. The action was declined for a number of reasons. One is that we are obligated to do warrants to determine whether or not a signal is warranted. Number two, signals are quite expensive, almost $1 million for installation, and then requires maintenance every year, of course. But it didn't meet the warrants anyway, given the low volumes of traffic coming out on Amino. It is also very close to the signal at Condit Road. And so my suggestion back was that if turning left out of Amino feels unsafe, it's only 400 feet to go down to Condit, and U-turns are permitted at that intersection.
That's what I thought too.
The third issue is Quant Road. At Quant Court and Candy Court, And so there are some blind curves on that street. This anecdotally was the most challenging of all the TARs. So this one is still in process. The horizontal curves are challenging for us in Lafayette because we follow engineering guidance. We make sure that the lanes are narrowed by striping edge lines and making the lanes feel narrower. Oftentimes Mike has installed posts, as he's done on Quant Road, to try to encourage vehicles from staying in the lane and slowing down. We've got the warning signs. We check for visibility issues, and all of that is met. And we're running out of options. And I have to be totally honest. I've done a lot of research on how to address issues on horizontal curves. Most of the research are for high-speed rural roads. But we are still doing everything that are recommended for high-speed rural roads, with the possible exception of rumble strips along the edge lines, to try to let motorists know when they're moving away from their travel lane. That's not feasible here because it's a residential street and it would make a lot of noise. I am going to go back out, check to make sure that visibility truly is maximized, that the vegetation is trimmed, to make sure that the signs are all visible. And we can make sure that as drivers coming out of Quant Court, that was actually the main issue, where drivers coming out of Quant Court have the horizontal curve is so close to that street that turning right or left out of Quant Court is dangerous, given that cars are traveling too fast. I did take speeds along Quant Road, particularly on the straightaways, not in the curve. Speeds are generally okay, particularly over by Candy Court, where the 85th percentile speed is 23. It's 28 back by Del Arroyo Court. So that's well in advance of the horizontal curve. So we're challenged.
And is that westbound? 85th percentile speed?
What I reported here, although I got speeds in both directions, but I did report the speeds heading towards the horizontal curve.
Okay, so
Yeah,
westbound.
so that was westbound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he just said that, sorry. Okay, yeah, I mean, I've walked over there and looked at Quant Court, and I think one of the issues is that there is vegetation.
Mhm.
It's that corner, the eastern corner of Quant Court and Quant Road.
Mhm.
And there's actually the trees, like a grove of trees. And so it's really like a whole bunch of trunks and then maybe some bushes as well. So in terms of just the openness of that corner, it's just not,
Yeah.
not very visible.
Mhm. So I also have sent my the code enforcement officer over there to make sure that codes are being met. If they are, then it's a voluntary. We have to ask the homeowner to trim back even more
Mhm,
if they are meeting the vegetation code.
mhm. Yeah, 'cause there might be a way to improve it a little bit,
Mhm.
which would probably be a big help.
Yeah.
And I think at that point, if I looked at the map correctly, it looks like the tightest radius is right there,
Mhm.
right? So,
It was a poor place to build Quant Court.
yeah, it makes me wonder, and I don't know what landform controlled that, why they made that squiggle. Mike, you know? They could have made it straight.
It wouldn't have been like
There's
that.
the back end to the ranch road goes up through there.
Uh-huh,
Speaking as somebody who lived on Quant Court for a couple of years.
Oh, you did?
You
Yeah.
did.
Oh, okay.
yes, yeah, that's right. we did
Yes,
that.
I think it wrapped around and then goes up.
Uh-huh, okay.
So
But the issues around horizontal curves keep coming up over and over and over again across the city. And so I'm reaching out to the engineering community nationwide, via professional organizations, right, to find out if, hey, does anyone have recommendations on what can be done? Speed humps cannot be put in the curves because, you need a certain amount of sight distance for drivers. So there, it's a challenge.
Will there be any lane narrowing as part of the pathway project on Quad? Because I've been watching what's happening, and I have questions, but I wondered if you were gonna be shifting the center line a little bit.
Not as part of that project.
Because that probably ends at Del Arroyo.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so I guess it would be back from Del Arroyo East, okay. Okay, so yeah, it doesn't affect this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I remember discussing this area when we had the safety around schools, walkthroughs and so forth. And I'm trying to remember, so is the reason on the section where there's the rounded curve, is that is because it also functions as driveways there? Or is it because the issue came up with people parking partway into the sidewalk on the south side? Then I couldn't remember if those are driveways, or is there something that can be done to enhance the edge so that people
On the
won't park?
north side, Mike's installed posts where there aren't driveways.
Yeah.
Posts and hatching in the shoulder area,
Uh-huh.
again, just to make a visual,
Delineation.
message to drivers that,
Right.
hey, slow down here.
Mhm. So the issue, the issue I read was, people are parking and waiting. And when they're doing that, they are parking on the sidewalk, right? So my
On the
question,
south side, yes.
on the south side, yes.
Yeah.
So my question is there something that can be done to help reduce the people parking too far over? I mean, it's a rounded curve, but it's hard to judge it from your driver, I guess.
That I'm not sure what we can do. From what I understand, that's only a problem in school pickup times.
Right.
And there's a full sidewalk on the north side of the street. So in
Okay.
terms of the safety of the kids who may be walking from Spring Hill School over to where their parents might be waiting,
Mhm.
there is a full sidewalk on the north side.
Yeah, okay.
I would like to add something. For a person who is visually impaired, those rounded curves are really scary because you don't know, you
Mhm.
can't see. So I got tripped a couple times.
So
So it
of
would
course,
be
we are
better if it was-
building, we are building a full sidewalk west of this area and.
would be better if it were just
Bring it
a
eastward,
regular,
westward.
yeah, but it would be better if it were a regular curve so that it's more contrasting.
Right, you're right, we would never build a roll curve today.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Anything else on this issue? All right. Move forward.
The next one is at Highland Road, which is the area, the neighborhood just south of, like where Risa Road is. And Highland Road is the street that's kind of the furthest back up against the hill in that area, and there is a hill. Like a crest in the road in Highland, between two of the houses there. And the request was to put up some advisory signs with a lowered speed limit. And so to do that, we would need to install two signs on one pole. One is a hill block view sign with an advisory speed limit plaque underneath. My action was to decline this, given the fact that number of reasons. One is that we do try to minimize the amount of signs that we put on our streets. The more signs there are,
The
more they are just kind of ignored or become invisible. And that is guidance that's also supported by the MUTCD. This is a very, very low volume street. There would be very little traffic there beyond the people that live there. And so the decision was to decline this. The fifth location was the Town Hall Theater on School Street. Adjacent to the theater, there are some diagonal parking spaces, some accessible parking spaces, but then some open parking spaces that are in the public right of way. And so the request was to convert them to private use for town hall business. And so there is a process for this. This is done in a public parking lot adjacent to Uncle Hughes on Oak Hill at Mount Diablo. But there is a process and a fee associated with the conversion of public parking to private parking. The theater applicant decided that they did not want to progress. They didn't want to move forward on that. So those spots will remain public use only.
I
Go ahead.
I have a question about that, actually, because it's very confusing. The sidewalk ends. And there is no way for a pedestrian to keep going except into the parking spots, and it gets a little iffy. Right, by the
Yeah.
theater.
Mhm. Yep.
Couldn't they make a sidewalk all the way to the light?
Well, we do have our School Street project that's kicking off soon, and there'll be a much more enhanced walkway on the north side of the street. I don't know if well, we certainly don't have a budget within the scope of that project to extend the sidewalk on the south side of the street, but
Or it's the north side, well, it's south side of the theater, but it's. Right,
no, it's on the south side of the street adjacent to the theater, which is on the south side of School Street. Yeah.
okay. Yes,
This is a minor, what's with the Masonic temple that's right around the corner?
yeah.
What's the status of the temple there? Is it closed or is it open? Are they using it? I mean, it seems like that would be a good parking, they could convert that to a metered lot and be good for events. I just didn't know if that had come up
I
anytime.
did not, it's not come
Okay,
up.
all right,
No one's ever asked that question, but
all right.
it's a good one, and I'll write it down.
Is it being used? The temple?
I don't know.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
Yeah. I always thought these spots by town hall were town hall spots.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I never used them,
No, okay.
really.
Uh-huh.
There's only about three.
Got three.
Four.
Yeah.
Right. Mhm.
Yeah, but I do think it would be nice to have that repurposed into a sidewalk, honestly.
Thank you.
Just
Yes.
continue to just
Well,
fill the
it's,
gap.
it's safer.
So maybe when we get looking at a master walkways, plan, we can
Which we will be doing soon.
come
Yeah.
back to that.
Mhm. Okay.
Thank you.
So the last location was mentioned already earlier tonight, which is a TAR for the Ocolonus neighborhood off of Pleasant Hill Road. Number of issues that were mentioned in this TAR. One is speeding along Ocolonus Avenue, but then also Nogales Street, which is the cut through. The second is a lack of stop sign compliance at that intersection. Right now, it's a two-way stop sign. Nogales does not have a stop sign or any stop control there. And so, right, there's stop sign compliance, there's speeding. And there was also a request to restrict right turns from Pleasant Hill Road, northbound Pleasant Hill Road onto Ocolonus Avenue during school drop-off and pickup times with residents accepted. So the traffic calming portion of that, the speeding traffic, has been moved to the traffic calming program, and that'll be evaluated with the other projects. I am looking at separately at kind of doing the edge line treatment for Ocolonus Avenue to kind of make the road feel a little bit narrower, to try to the intersection is pretty sweeping, right? So you've got 28 feet of width, and then it kind of flares out the intersection. So I would try to tighten that a little bit with paint. We'll do a stop sign evaluation for the intersection with Nogales to see if it warrants an all-way stop control there. And then I've denied the request for the right turn restriction for residents, for everybody other than residents.
I wanted to ask about that because I support what you did. I'm just was trying to recall. at the time that the no right turn rule was instituted at Withers, and that was a bit of a mess because of I think the jurisdiction was Pleasant Hill, Contra Costa or something. It was a convoluted process, but could traffic be restricted during times of day? Not that we'd want to, but could it be done if we wanted to?
It could be done, yes, not for residents only, but for everyone.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, right.
Residents only versus everyone.
Right.
Okay, that's what I wondered.
Right.
All right,
That's a privatization of
that's right.
public right away.
Right. Okay.
Just one comment in the last part where, informing residents that permanent closure could be permitted, and I just feel as a policy position, that the city really shouldn't be, reducing the connectivity of its road network by closing intersections. We have such a poor connectivity to begin with. That seems to me that would just impede, just the free passage of anyone, because it is a public road,
Right.
but also, reduce emergency response, particularly wildfire.
Yes, although I actually agree with you on the first point, which is that we need connectivity and it is a public roadway. But the way that the road closures are set up, a fire truck could knock down the posts that we had installed, right? So,
I see. I mean, I guess I'm thinking of people, the
oh,
passenger cars are wanting to leave, for
Right.
example. And Stanley is blocked up. People might turn and go try to get out to Pleasant Hill Road through this road. I mean, I fully appreciate the frustration that residents have to cut through traffic, but the road network is used by all and we all benefit from it.
Yeah.
And so reducing it, I think it's just not in our best interest, everyone's best interest.
Okay. Let's take public input if there's any. If anybody in the room wants to speak on this item, I don't see anybody wanting to speak here. Anybody online have their hand raised? No? Okay. All right, then let's go back. Any more questions on the staff report or TARS in general? Then I want to thank you for this update. This is really great because through the years, we've always wanted to hear, what the status of TARS were and I'm really glad you called out all of your efforts because I think that for a lot of people in the past, the amount of work that was done by staff was hidden. So I'm glad you called that out. So, all right. So that's, I think, enough for this item. This general section 8 is also called Commissioner and Staff Reports, the time when we can share. If anybody on the fellow commissioners want to share anything about traffic or anything related, now's your opportunity.
Well, I'll just take the opportunity to thank Public Works and Engineering for all their work on the Quant pathway rebuild, as well as the Pleasant Hill Road pathway and Release Valley Road
Mhm.
pathway segment. I know.
Yeah.
It's very like-
Yeah.
And Tim, who I believe is working on all of that. It's really appreciated and it's looking pretty good.
They're going as fast as they can. The
Yeah.
intent is to get the Pleasant Hill run as close to 100% before that 15. The other two will not be complete.
Yeah, the curb cut is the last part.
Right, they've got the ramp to do, they've got a little bit of plugging against, like where they had to knock out asphalt for the guardrail and it just,
Yeah.
just some detail work and some punch list type stuff. But,
Will they get the curb cut or the ramp in by the 15th?
as of this morning, I believe they will, as of the update I got this morning, I believe they will.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is everyone's intent that they will.
And then for kids who are using Quant Road to get to school next week, how will you manage that
Yeah.
traffic?
They're actually trying to pave that. It may not be all the way done either, but then once school starts, they won't be doing construction like from 8 to 9 and,
Mhm.
or that morning route. So their intent is to get it passable. And I would say their passable will be better than it was last year, right? Or
Yeah.
before they started this project.
Oh, okay.
So
Even by the 15th.
that is the hope.
Okay.
That's Quant. Reilly's Valley will not be paved. They basically have the old pathway, but they've got some fence work to do. And then they've got quite a bit of paving to do. So it's just gonna go on during school, but cognizant of those commute times and traffic control won't start until 9 AM
Okay,
once school starts.
okay, that's helpful. Yeah, I haven't walked by Quant for about a week, I think, or 5 days now, so I didn't realize they were that far along. I thought it was still gonna be an excavated, just base rock.
They're not that far along, but I just told you their goal.
Okay.
So,
Okay, yeah, I was just wondering, like, how
Yeah,
are you gonna
working on
keep the kids on the bikes out of that?
so the intent is kind of thinking of it as a temporary path that's
Yeah.
safer than what's there now, right?
Yeah, okay. All right, yeah, no, I really appreciate that, all that work.
Okay,
I do have one of the
Yeah,
updates.
please
Sorry.
do.
So GPAC.
I was gonna ask you.
Was on a little hiatus after completing the safety element. And that went through council. I'm not sure exactly what date, but in the past couple meetings. The next chapter or element will be land use. And I don't know when we'll start. We were going to this month, August 15th, but that has been canceled. So stay tuned.
The circulation element, I think, will follow land use.
That is what I heard.
That's what I understand too.
Yeah, we'll see.
Like in 6 months, 8 months, a year?
Yes.
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 Yeah, who knows? Right, okay. Thank you for filling us in on GPAC, because I was gonna ask that. I saw the note from Renata that it was being delayed, so. Anything else anybody like to share? Anything you want to share about city council or anything
Yeah,
else?
so traffic, I don't remember the last time I was here, we met, but traffic calming policy was adopted by council in June. Which was a huge success, that's great. Local road safety plan was brought to them in late June. And Councilmember Candell had a few comments, primarily around emergency response and evacuation routes and being a little more prescriptive about the language within the local road safety plan about engineering improvements on evacuation routes. So it's expected to go back again on August 28th for adoption. So that's great news. In the spring, I applied for a grant through Caltrans for a parking study. And that was approved. So a downtown parking study, so an update to the old one that was done, I forget the year. So it will be, I can send you the scope of work, but an update to parking supply, demand, and then coming up with some solutions to help spread the demand over all of our supply, and try to think about parking demand in the future, given the potential loss of part of the parking lots, and then any other land use updates and from the housing element update, and then be aligned with the land use update as well. It also will help to kick off the Mount Diablo corridor plan, which is the update to the downtown specific plan. So great news, yeah, $175,000.
That's great.
Wow, that is great.
That's great, because I was gonna ask about that, because Mayor Anduri has several occasions expressed an interest in having the downtown specific plan updated as soon as possible.
Yeah. So this will be some of the data that will help support that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes, that's great. Okay.
Have you gotten any response on the TDA grant for Pleasant Hill Road in the?
Yes, we got advance word that it is likely to be approved.
Oh, okay,
I believe it has to go through MTC board, no, the TDA grant.
It is MTC board.
Okay.
So we
that-
usually find out officially in the fall. So it's for 2024.
Yeah,
Basically.
Okay,
Right.
and then there was another grant that you wrote for the
Yep.
aqueduct study.
Right, so I have not yet heard about that one. I actually checked the website again. That was Caltrans as well, Sustainable Transportation Planning Grant. And what's written there is summer 2023.
Okay.
So they're getting close.
Those are your definition of summer.
So, yeah, so I haven't yet heard about that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments? Well, thank you again for all your work and like what I said about the TARs, I appreciate all the work you're doing, so this is great.
Great, thanks.
And with that, it's 8:56 PM and this meeting's adjourned.
All right.
Thank you.
Excellent.